Yeah. So I would say we were discussing that there were 7 AOs and 70 minutes on your day three. So I would suggest when you start writing your next day three, try writing how much time you are using up for different AOs. What I used to do is like I had similar issues and even Guneet and almost everyone else. I used to consume maximum time in financial accounting. Financial accounting normally would take me, if I remember correctly, like 70 minutes. If we do the maths, 70 minutes, 7 AOs, 10 minutes for 1 AO each. If you are using anything more than 10 minutes, you have to lower down to, that number in some other AO. So what I used to do is, because our focus is breadth, financial accounting, I would generally keep at the last so that I can maybe get an RC in financial accounting, but I am able to attempt all of the other ones. So I recognize that for me, financial accounting was my weakness that I was not able to attempt in 10, 12 minutes. So that is how I did. So in this case, I would attempt all the 6 AOs within 60 minutes, within 60 minutes, but I would still try that I complete before 60 minutes so that I have something left for financial accounting. See, if I am left with 10 to 12 minutes, then I would focus on financial accounting and do the maximum I can. And because my speed was such that I was not able to complete financial accounting, what I would do in the end, in the last 1 to 2 minutes, I would just write the conclusion so that at least I have ticked all the points. So
And
this is
to
my
this,
suggestion. Yeah.
and to add to Ravneet's point, just like you have that strategy for day two, that you prioritize audit above FA and MA in day two, right?
Mhm.
So, like, what happened with me was that in the actual exam in day two, I actually missed out on a couple of, like, one and a half AO in day two. Like, I couldn't attempt it, and that was from MA, because that was our strategy. We started with audit. Once we were done with all the audit AOs, then we would move to FA and MA. And it so happened in our exam that MA was a little tricky. So in day two, I attempted first audit, then I moved to FA, and then I was left with MA. So in the MA, I actually ran out of time at the end, and I missed one and a half AO or something. So now when I moved to day three, I already had that in mind that, I've missed on MA in the previous day.
Yeah.
And I knew that FA I did good. Like, I knew when I came back that those were all the questions I knew, and I gave a good attempt. So now my focus on day three, obviously it was on FA, but then like Ravneet said, right, that if he was taking the most time in FA and he already knows that in day two he's attempted FA well, he would already have in his mind that now he has to focus on the other areas like taxation, SNG, MA especially, right? Like, so you basically have to strategize, like that. And even in like in FA, it might come out to be true for you, because like when Ravneet used to note these times, I used to look at him and be like, why are you doing that? But like now I understand why he used to do that, to identify what is actually falling out of place on a consistent manner in your exams, right? So that ways you will always know that which subject it is that you tend to write a lot more. Because in FA, what happens is that you have so much to write that you end up writing a lot, because you know so
Yeah.
much in that question, right? But the whole point is that you need to be concise in day three, because in day two, day three, this is the biggest difference, that in day two you go a lot into depth as well, but in day three you don't have to go that much into the depth. You have to focus on covering everything. So like,
Mhm.
I would say that now when you attempt day three, what you should do is that obviously follow all the CPA way of writing, issue, gap, analysis, and
Mhm.
everything, but don't write a lot, because it will take a lot of your time then. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. And then the other question is that how do you prepare your outline for day three?
Um, my outline is simple actually. When I'm reading, I maximum times I mark it on the question. For example, if there is I'll just write a R or a W or a strength
Okay.
S.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
because I practiced it and I understood that there's no point of writing a outline.
exactly. We
There's
did the
no point.
same. We
Yeah,
did the
because that
same.
was taking my time into reading.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the
And day
thing.
three cases are normally only 3 to 4 pager. Like, they're not as long as day one and day two. So it doesn't make a
Yeah.
lot of sense that you spend that time in reading and then making an outline and then going to attempt the case.
Yes,
So
exactly,
that's a
exactly.
good way of
So
doing
because
it.
In day three, you remember that this page has the information. In day two, your half of the time goes in between the pages itself.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
right.
And sorry,
So
just a follow-up question again. My the analysis which you're talking, I did that actually, and my problem is MA because
okay.
90% of the time MA is content called quantitative and
Yeah.
qualitative. And
Yeah.
quantitative means it has a lot of data inside it, a lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you start your Excel work, and by that time the time of the year is gone, and your qualitative is gone. And even if you've done your quantitative perfectly, you are an RC because of qualitative.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
that what we recommend is also what we covered when we were doing webinars.
Yeah.
That in quantitative, normally they will give you a lot of things, right? And there would in quantitative, there normally is also integration from some other AOs. Now, what we would say is that if there are say 6 points in a quantitative, start with covering those 4 points that you know are simple addition and subtractions. Simple, like in our minds, we would think that, okay, this is simple, so it won't matter that much. So let's focus on the complex calculation first, right? But then it's the opposite. If you focus on that complex, you're missing out on those 4 other simple subtractions and additions. And then you're also missing on the qualitative analysis that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what happens is that you get that one number right, maybe, but then you miss out on so much. So now when you do your quantitative analysis, just look for numbers that appear as simple, calculation to you.
Maths.
Start with that,
Yeah.
then do your qualitative analysis. And if you still feel that you are within that 10-minute time range and you have some time to look into that complex calculation, you can go back to your Excel, add a row and start calculating, and wherever, you can add it or leave it, you can do that. But I would say that don't spend that much time on those complex numbers, because in MA, I understand that sometimes they would give you those complex calculations where you would just get stuck. You know that I know how to do it, but it
Yeah.
takes your time, right? It takes
Yeah.
time. And like, we don't want to let it go unless we are completely done with it.
I mean, 15 minutes in a day three means you'll leave to AOs.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So for qualitative, I can suggest you although may have 4 to 5 points to write, but just write minimum 2, maximum 3. That is all.
Yeah.
It will
Okay.
save your time.
Yeah.
And have pre-decided in your mind that you're not writing beyond 3 points.
Yeah. And also,
Okay.
they don't have to be long explanations in day 3.
One
Like
liner
we
also.
said, like we said, day 3 is not depth-based. It's just that you are like hitting the right points. So if you are actually just writing maybe concisely in 2 lines, or maybe just 1 line and adding all the facts in that 1 line for a qualitative factor, you should be good there. Like, you don't have to make it voluminous.
Okay. So since you mentioned that, sorry, I think I may be taking a lot of time, but just last one. I think when it comes to writing shorter sentences, I get a lot confused, and this happens when I go to the feedback guide, not the solution, because solution is
Yeah.
impractical. But when you go to the feedback guide, it says A and D. I mean, analysis and discussed.
Yeah.
And discussed means they always say you have to tie it back to the case facts, you have to do everything. And to do that in 2 sentences is not possible. So at the end of the day, I understand that I will not be able to get a C in that if I don't qualify as discussed
Don't
in
take
any
it by
sentence.
heart. I would say don't take it by heart that you have to actually go very much in depth. It has to be again in one, not exact 1 line, but 1.5 lines.
But what I would say to that, Sameer, is that like, when you say that you should link it to the case, it should not be a separate line to link it to the case. Like, for me, when I did qualitative for day 3, I would directly start that line with the case facts.
Yeah.
I don't have an example in my head to give you for that.
Like, maybe let me just give an example that she's mentioning. Say there is product A and product B, and you're doing quantitative analysis. But when you go into qualitative, as soon as you go into qualitative, you know that product A, you would have to say procure from UK and not from within Canada. So you would write not locally available, product not locally available, dash, and also grammatical errors get ignored. So you just write product not available locally, product B, or in fact,
Or maybe which
even
indicates
without.
higher cost of procurement of that
Yeah.
product, right?
So
Just
like,
simply you also related that
Okay.
fact with the case instantly. Like, you're not saying that since this product, like, because I used to write voluminous sentences that since product A is not available locally,
Yes,
that
that's
means
what I
that there
do.
will be extra
Yeah.
cost. So things like that. So Ravneet's example is nice that, just like write the heading and then automatically just like quickly link it to that case and you're done.
So basically, just take care of what and why.
Yeah.
What and I mean, yeah, how it will impact.
Yeah,
Simple.
yeah, yeah. How it,
Okay.
how basically what's the factor which is a pro or a con?
Yeah. So basically, how we do WIR sort of, we just
Yeah.
sort of link it quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. That helps a lot.
No worries.
No worries.
And
What?
yeah, before you have like further questions, two more tips that I can perhaps give you. So for if you want to complete day 3 relatively on time, tax questions ideally should get wrapped up in 5-6 minutes. Because as much as you know, you should wrap those up in like 5 to 6 minutes. Like this is for everyone. And more or less, you should not go towards nausea in the exams if you are doing any financial accounting matter.
Yeah, day 3, do not go to
Yeah.
nausea at all. You
Otherwise,
don't.
you will lose all.
You do not have
lot
time for that.
lot of time. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Further questions, anyone? Abhi or Sabreen, Prithvi, Chapan?
I have like the same question which everyone has, time management. Like I'm taking like more than, like as compared to the time allotted, I'm taking more like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it depends. For the day two case, my time goes up to 5.5 hours or maybe 5 or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So you see the maximum, I have identified the areas that I need to work on, and these are basically the quants. They take
Yeah.
up most of my time. And they say that you need to refer it, you need to explain it well. And if I start explaining it really well, it will take so much of my time. So how did you actually explain the quants? Do I need to put in a note reference every single time?
So not always, to be honest, where so one of the advices which we also got from our tutors and we used to discuss within ourselves was that the numbers which are very clearly obvious, say, if something is mentioned in an extra one, there is not the need always that you need to mention a note, but where say you are doing some calculation, ideally do not go. So what I used to do, and even Guneet, I guess, say if you are doing an Excel, just create another column and you just write very basic without grammatical notes. And not always where the numbers are obvious, do not write notes.
Yeah, and because the biggest point here is that the examiner, when they are checking, they can actually see the formulas that you put. So, for instance, now if there's a cost that they've given and you know that the labor cost needs to be maybe prorated to 6 months. So, if you put that formula of that total annual cost divided by 12 into 6, say, so they can see that you divided that by 12 months because it was annual, and then you multiplied by 6 to get to the semi-annual cost or like 6-month cost, right? So in these cases, you can just maybe to the right of the column. Now, when I started, what I used to do was I used to make note 1, note 2, note 3, and then go down and, basically presentation. I would call it presentation, that I would make it presentable, that, everything is very clear and notes are labeled correctly and everything.
Yeah.
But that takes so much of your time. So what
Yes.
I started doing was that I would just go to the right of that column unless it is a very complex calculation, sometimes because the calculations in 1 or 2 items would be complex.
Yeah.
So for those, you definitely need to go down and maybe start a separate calculation. But otherwise, if you're just putting those formulas in that column directly for the ones that you can, if you just say that prorated for 6 months to the right of that cell that you've calculated, you will be good. You don't have to necessarily link it and say that since it was mentioned in the case that this is 6 months, so that is why I have prorated it for 6 months. Like you don't have to describe what you are doing and why you are doing it. Just you are doing it and just like writing very minutely that okay, because it's 6 months I've done this, is like that should be okay, if that makes sense. And like we were telling Sameer, for day 3 the same thing applies to day 2 also, that pick up the numbers that are easy first. And like I said, that there will be 1 or 2 items that are complex always, and it will always be there. I would say maybe leave them or at first, or if you see that it's that is something that you can do in like a minute or something very quickly, just do it. Or like Now that's very subjective, because sometimes the calculation you would have it in your head because you might have already done that in a practice case. So you would know that, okay, I can do this, within a minute or something. So that time you can do it. But then most of the times I would say start with the easy ones, because we've been mentioning this before also, that out of 6, say, points, if you only cover 4 points in a question, you are still good.
Yeah.
Like, if you focus enough on your qualitative analysis as well, and the other
Yeah.
points that you did are okay, you have put notes right next to them as to what you did, why you did them, you should be okay.
Just one
Okay.
point I would like to add to what Guneet just mentioned. So this, the part that she is mentioning, so this is, when you are like struggling with not completing the quantitative, and as you mentioned, that you are going overboard like half an hour, 40 minutes. So in those cases, at least you can start off like this, doing more simpler calculations. But if in a quantitative analysis, there are some numbers that are required to be worked with, they the CP Institute wants you to do well on those as well. So you can keep it as a second priority, but again, don't interpret it in a manner that you should like forget it. And this is the fifth item, and okay, let's just forget about it. Maybe attempting that at the last. So this is for you, Sabine, because you are just, as you mentioned, that you're going overboard like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So this is for you, at least you can get that confidence that, okay, at least I am able to complete my exam. All I need to focus is how I do it more better. So, and yeah, and also one suggestion that, okay, that you complete your exam in 5 or 45 minutes, but do not make this a habit. One of the inputs that we always give is complete your exam in 5 hours always, and then do the debrief. Do not attempt the questions, because if you develop that habit of completing, okay, 5 hours have been completed, but let me just complete the exam. If you will do that, then you will not have that exam pressure. So you need to have that
Okay.
exam pressure always. Next
Because
time,
then, only then, when you know that, okay, I have half hour left for 5, that pressure and how you will tackle with those remaining AOs now
yeah,
is what this experience is about. That
yeah,
if that happens in the exam, like, then what will you do? So you need to
Yes.
have that, you
Okay.
know how you're doing it. And
Okay.
another very important thing in the day 2 cases is that, if you are going through the marking guides right now, you would know that a conclusion and a financial impact, conclusion recommendation and a financial impact with that, is like absolutely necessary. So even
Yeah.
if your quant, you left it in between and you couldn't complete it, still, write that conclusion in the Excel, that this is, basis the above calculation, this is the number that I've got. Then go back to your word and you would say that, as per appendix calculation in appendix 1, this is the number. Then you do your qualitative analysis. But then, always, even if you were not able to finish that question, if you miss on the recommendation and the financial impact, you will definitely not be able to go beyond an RC. And RC also only if your quant and call were good.
yeah,
So but in that case, I would say leave the call that you were doing, or leave the quant that you were doing at that point. Just do the recommendation and the financial impact, even though you know to your bones that the number that you have there is incorrect. Because if you
Okay.
guys are, yeah, because if you guys are going through, some papers, right, marking exams,
yeah,
and if some tutors do provide strong responses to questions, like when I was doing that, I know that the strong responses I got, and I used to get feedback guides with them as well. So I saw that the overall conclusion that the candidate would reach was not correct. Like, it was not what we had in the institute answer or the board
Yes.
issued report. But even then, they would get competent. So, which
Yeah.
meant that ideally, even if you're not attempting the technical correctly, it's more so like a step marking. If you are following those steps, you can still be fine.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so
And
much for
also,
that. And
Sabine,
just one more thing.
yeah,
Sorry. Uh,
and also, Sabine, when
Yeah.
you go around the feedback guide, when you debrief, also go
Yeah.
around the feedback guide, especially quantitative for you. Uh, if you have, did you register for capstone too?
Yes.
Okay, so
But
you,
not for evaluation. Just I just bought the material.
Oh, okay. So maybe if it is available on Google or some of your friends, so there is a feedback guide specifically, and it is in Excel. So what I used to do is, and even I think Guneet used to do that. So say there are 7 pointers in a
Yeah.
quantitative, and you just select that you completed first and second, and just select no on all the other 5 that you did not attempt at all, and you wrote the conclusion. Even then, you get a RC. So this is just one example. So by doing this permutation combination, you would recognize over a period of time after writing a couple of cases that okay, this is the case, this is the MA which I have in hand. I have only say 8 to 9 minutes. How can I do this the best so that I at least get a RC or maybe a C? So this is how you will learn. So the feedback guides are actually very important for yourself to learn.
Yeah, and
Yes,
I
yes.
remember that. Hmm. And I
Sorry,
remember
you were saying?
that. Yeah, sorry, Sabrine, cutting you off again and again.
No, no,
Uh,
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
So I was saying that, I remember that when Ramit used to do with these feedback guides, after some time, you would actually understand that, if in a quant, I'm only covering 3 points or 4 points and maybe one integration, like integration between AOs, I am still able to get a C. Similarly, in the qualitative factors,
Yeah.
if you're able to get 3 calls correct, you are able to get a C. So, like, why we keep saying that even if you do 3 or 4 out of 6, 7 is fine, is because of those feedback guides.
Yeah.
Because when we did that, like we arrived at those conclusions because when you start going through every feedback guide of the case you are writing, you start understanding the marking, how the exams are marked. So when you start getting a grasp of that, you would automatically know that if it's a WIR case and I'm just writing 4 weaknesses, impacts, and recommendations, I am still fine. Like I will still be fine. So in that case, what I used to do is that if I know, okay, it's averagely between 4 or 5, if I write, I should be okay. In that case, I would write just one extra, just to make sure that if that any one out of the 4 I wrote is not covered in the feedback guide, I still have
Hmm.
another one to,
Yeah.
not let me bump to the RC. So just
Okay.
start doing the feedback guides because they're very helpful. Like start
Yeah,
studying them.
yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. And just one more thing. Do you know how many C's do we require for day two and day three?
So there is no book that can tell you that, but there is a very generic number which like floats in the market, maybe like 6 to 7 C's. It's like a very ballpark number. Everybody says their own bit, and this number is also something that we have heard of from a couple of tutors. So honestly, there is no specific number, but again, it does not mean that all you need to get is C's, or all that even RCs. Even RCs are good, but there is a particular combination, and it is a percentile based exam, not that you can achieve 5 C's and you are good. If the others are also getting those 5 C's, then you need to get maybe the sixth C as well. But generally a ballpark number is maybe around, if you talk about assurance and finance, that FA and MA, maybe like at least 50% C's of the number of questions that you have. At least 50% of the C's is a good thing to keep in
Like
mind.
at least aim for,
At
like
least
when you're
aim for.
practicing exams.
Yeah.
I personally feel that it should be a little less of C's, and even if you get like less C's and more RC's, you are still okay. But like when you're writing these exams, your focus should be that you do not have any NAs or NC's. So if you still have like RC's and C's, you're all good. Because
Yeah.
I think how the calc works is that you get 2 points for one C, and obviously
Yeah.
I think one for one RC, something like that.
Right.
So yeah, so if you get C's, the more C's you get, the better it is.
Better it is.
Then it covers even if you have any NC's or
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, like no fixed number as such.
Okay, thank you so much.
Japan.
Yeah, hi. I have one question.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm studying from coaching class material
Yeah.
because I don't have access of Notia because my registration is in process.
Yeah.
So today, just like in the evening, I got an email that your registration is complete. So what you suggest, like once I have complete the coaching classes material, I have to refer to Notia or what?
So ideally, what you would do is whenever you get access to Notia,
Huh.
so when you are attempting the cases,
Hmm.
you need to refer to Notia to say copy paste the financial accounting provision. Say you need to uh, copy paste conditions from lease or revenue recognition in your answer.
Particularly in day two.
Particularly in day two, yeah. Day two especially, you should refer that so that you can save up on time. So on those occasions, you should refer. But otherwise, other than your main focus should not be to get a hang of how what all nausea is there because you already have a tutor. So you should not refer that for technical source material, but just that so you know how it works, how like you can easily navigate. You should know that there is a section for ASPE, and so that your speed becomes better. You should know, okay, in ASPE lease comes somewhere here, and in IFRS lease comes somewhere here. At least know the major sections.
Yeah. So, like to add on to that, how we did was that initially nausea, like when we started writing cases, we would write them by ourselves. But when we would debrief cases, so if in the like in the board issued reports, you would see that they mention the the number also. So when they would mention the number, we would go to the nausea and kind of find
Okay.
it. So that
Okay.
when you start doing that, for example, now if you are in revenue recognition and you got a question for say onerous contract, so
Hmm.
you attempted the exam, but then you maybe you tried finding it in the nausea when you were attempting that practice exam yourself and you couldn't
Yeah.
find it. But now when you debrief it, you find the para number that they are mentioning, right? So now what you would do is that you keep your nausea open by the side, you would go to revenue recognition, right? And then you would open and scroll it and try to find onerous contract.
Yeah.
So now
Hmm.
understand that when you are doing that as part of your practice, right?
Hmm.
You are
Right.
like by the time your exams approach, actually you would be so much familiar with nausea, navigating it, and you know where you have to go exactly to find what you need.
Yeah.
That will get a lot better. Then when your
Okay.
exams are nearing, because I remember Ravneet and I did that like around 2 weeks before the exam, when you know a lot about nausea already, then you could just like go through nausea start to end. Because what we used to do was that just in case any question comes that we have no clue about, right, on day two.
Hmm.
So then we should at least know what standard, like
Right.
where we can find which standard.
Right.
Because in ASPE, I think it's a little different. IFRS still we are all familiar with, so we know that okay, if this is the question, we can find
Right.
that standard here and we can find the answer if we have time. But in ASPE, we normally don't know. So in ASPE, we scrolled through it and we got ourselves used to of just the names of like not no, I'm not asking you to get inside and read what's in the standard,
Yeah.
but just like get to know of what is in it and you know what are those standards, and especially the same thing for the not for profit part in there in the nausea. So just familiarize yourself at that
Okay.
point in time. Right now, if you just start with the board issued report and the specific answers that they give there,
Okay.
and you refer nausea right side by side, you should be good. Like
Yeah, you should be good.
yeah.
And her
Okay.
suggestion is mainly for assurance. Like review standards, there would be one question of say public offering, and there is a specific assurance standard or guidance around that. So because that's a very specific question and you do not know that answer, so if you know that there is an answer or there is some guidance there, at least you can go into that, copy paste that guidance, and write whatever the best you can, at least to get an RC. So that is just for backup purposes.
Yeah,
That you know
backup.
that there is something there.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And once we today I receive a registration email, so we have to ask them for a Notia access, or it is directly allowed by them.
Anybody else
Yeah,
wants to
I don't
answer that?
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
Once your registration is successful, you will receive the email from the board for the
Yeah.
access.
Okay. Yeah. After that.
I think you directly log in. You get some login credentials, and you can just log in. And whatever screen you will see after logging in is the same screen that you will see in your exam.
So that's the same.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Do we have any other questions?
Hey, Ravleen, thank you very much. Appreciate all your continuous follow up with me and the WhatsApp and LinkedIn.
No worries.
I agree with
Yeah.
And
you.
it's been a great thing you are doing that, because many CAs are completely unaware where to prepare and how to get the registration done. Luckily, I've met you, and I think I've got my past login as well, and I'm trying to get myself
Nice.
registered for coming September exams. My
Okay.
assessment is went through, so they have
Okay.
asked me to submit the application.
Okay.
So
Oh,
hopefully,
so
I
okay, that's good.
yeah. So I've started with my accounting. More or less, I have IFRS certification as well, so I find it pretty easy. But maybe
Nice.
I need some suggestions how to proceed going forward, because I have a lot of time. Not a lot of, because I'm occupied with other studies as well as part time. So
Yeah.
maybe any important things I should consider in my preparation, or should I leave all the topics and directly practice on the case studies? So what would you suggest me?
When are your when is your attempt? Is it September?
Mhm.
Yeah, September.
Okay. So at this point of time, like we are sitting in April, are you also working part-time and full-time until your exams, or will you have some leaves before that?
For sure, I'm thinking of taking 20 days leave at least, so
Okay.
that I'll be very sure of exams.
Okay.
Okay.
Like,
At this point of time, I would just my suggestion would be just to have a high-level primer of what the technical looks like, especially financial accounting. As you said that you're doing a course around that, so it should be relatively easy. But I would suggest you to do a high-level review of financial accounting. If that is something you are doing already, that is good. Other than that, finance. So three things which are main is financial accounting, management accounting, and tax. These are the three main things. The remaining ones, I would say, you can also get onto when you actually do the cases. Financial management is also something that you can do and should be quick because that is only a review. So FA, MA, and tax, technical review at this point of time. Maybe if you can do this in the next 20-30 days and then start writing cases around mid-May.
yeah, like because that's good that you are already, you're aware of the IFRS and you have deep knowledge, so that should be really helpful. But then there's also ASPE and there's other, things that other technicals basically like Ravneet mentioned. So like
Right.
I think at this point in time, you should basically start brushing your technicals first. Obviously, we could say that you can start writing cases, but it's like your attempt is still very far.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, we would say that you should focus mostly on getting a grip on your technicals, because mostly, when the students are just a couple of months away from the exam, at that point in time, we can only recommend them to only brush up the technicals a little and then move to cases directly,
Yeah.
because they don't have the time to spend on the technicals. But right now, you do have time. So I would say that if you have this time in hand, you should actually go through the technicals. And like you mentioned, that you're also going through pass. So just
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's a video course or what, but like start going through the technicals.
Yeah.
And once you feel like you're a little ready, maybe by May or
May.
June, then you start writing cases. Then it's only about cases.
Only about cases. I
Yeah.
think you can start writing May just to be ahead of time.
Yeah.
And because you would also be occupied in other things, so
Yeah.
you can start in May and
Yeah.
May lightly, and then June and July you can start full throttle.
Yeah, but then this time I think you should first brush your technicals.
Yeah.
And also day one is like a little it doesn't have technicals at all.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different process of attempting the exam and everything. So yeah, maybe like you could watch the past videos and just get a hang of the process, what kind of exam it is. And they
Right.
have case take-ups as well, so you could do that. So you will basically get that understanding of what you're looking at.
And
right?
when we say go into the technicals, like it does not mean that you start memorizing things.
Yeah.
Always actual learning in the technicals you will realize with time is in the cases, but at the
Right.
same time you need to have some knowledge, so you need to balance it out. So just have a high level understanding that okay, there is a related party transaction.
Make your notes.
Standard.
Like we used
Yeah.
to watch the past videos, make our own notes so that when we
Right.
were debriefing cases or even revising technicals, we didn't have to go into
back
those
again and
big
again.
binders.
Yeah.
We had our
Right.
notebook that we would just skim through for the important formulas or topics or things, and then we would be good. So like try doing that. Like that really worked for us. Because for everything you can't go to those binders to revise. So you have that time, so use it well.
Thank you, Gurmeet. Thank you, Raveen.
No problem. Yes, Abhi.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I actually already like this is my second attempt. I did give the first attempt last May, and I was okay with day one, but day two and day three. So I'm give it in May as well. So right now I'm like I always kind of do this, that I focus more on studying the material and less focus on doing the cases. I think like I actually practiced a lot on day three cases, and but I don't know, like maybe anxiety or something happened, and like I missed two AOs in day three. Day two I was okay, even though I practiced less of day two cases. Maybe because like I was, because day one went well, so I was okay with day two. So day two, because I wasn't sure like how it went, so that affected day three as well, I think. Like right now I'm giving May attempt, and with my job, like I can't take too many days off. I think I can take like a week off, and I'm studying like with my job. So what would be your suggestion that like I've started doing cases now, but now how I'm handling it is that I look at the case first, and then I see like what technical things that they have, and then if I don't have it, that technical knowledge, I go to that chapter and then read it, and then come back to the case and do the case to see like how well I can do. Like time management is like okay, I guess, but I'm more worried about the technicals, so I'm spending less time on the cases and doing more of the technicals. So, like, what would your suggestion would be in this?
So the first thing is, and I think that you yourself know that it's not a right practice, is that once you read the case, you should not go to technicals, because if you keep doing that, basically you're not brainstorming on it, because sometimes what happens is that you read a case, you know that you've studied this technical, but you're not able to recall it, right? So then if you just read the case, you think about it for a minute, and then you immediately go back to the books and go through it. That ways the case that you write would be better, because you just brushed up your technicals, right? So the result would turn out to be good. But then in the exam, if you make this a practice, if in the exam you just have to directly start writing the case right after reading it, I feel that you would get very anxious at that point in time, because if you start developing this as a habit, it would get very difficult for your mind to process that, okay, this one fine day I do not have my books to go to, and this is one topic that I know I've read and I'm not able to recall, but I know it. Like you end up getting tensed in your head, and then it might also impact the other AOs in question, or your whole exam. So in order to build that confidence, I would say that the first thing to correct here is that immediately after reading the case, just start writing the case. Because even if, say, in the practice, you missed out on two AOs that you knew, but then you couldn't remember. But then after that, if you debrief the case and you go through it, you will always remember that. Because once you do it by yourself, you've brainstormed and you're thinking of two possible alternate answers, but then you are not sure. If after that you will go back to the answer and know ki, okay, this was the correct answer, it will always stay in your head, because you made that mistake and then corrected it, instead of giving yourself that cushion in the first place and then not even letting yourself make a mistake. So I think the first thing would be that. Do you want to add anything?
Uh, before I add one question, Abhi, so is that for financial accounting?
Mainly yes, financial accounting, because I'm good with audit, because my job is in audit, so I'm good with that.
Okay.
Taxation, it's fine. It's like, because like before this, I was a staff accountant, so I have the technical knowledge as well. It's basically financial accounting. Management, I'm good with management.
And also, is it mainly or most of the times revenue recognition?
Kind of like IFRS, yes, revenue recognition. Like I would say that maybe ASPE, because of my background, like ASPE is, I'm more comfortable with ASPE. With IFRS, it takes me longer time, and it's like yeah, I just feel comfortable going back to the studies and then going back to the case.
And what is your source material for financial accounting? Do you have something which differentiates between ASPE and IFRS?
No. So I'm just going through, like, I think with about my background, because I did my like diploma and
Okay.
my like
IFRS?
my degree from Canada. So it was more focused on ASPE rather than IFRS. So I think that's why. But like right now, my source is, because I took capstone last year, so I have all the material from there. Yeah.
Got it. So, uh, see, I understand where it is coming from. If I let me deep dive a little bit more, if I talk about day two, normally we have 6 assessment opportunities, 3 of which could be FA, 3 of which could be MA, or maybe 6 FA or maybe 6 MA, but normally it is a balance. Last attempt was 3 plus 3. I think 3 plus 3. Last attempt was 3 plus 3, and normally that is or should be the case. So imagine a situation, because I just want to comfort you a little here. So imagine a situation if there are 6 financial accounting opportunities, more or less, 2 of them will be 4 would be easy. I would say 2 would be easy, 2 would be medium, and 2 would be very difficult, or maybe
Like a little tricky.
a little tricky. And even out of those 2, 1 would be something you can still attempt, and 1 would be like out of the blues. If you know, you know, or maybe it may need more time. So I would suggest you that it is the situation is more about anxiousness. Focus about what you can do, because you have good background, and you have, you know, because you would have done each of this in your studies, your graduation, and even or slash diploma, and also in CP. So focus, say, even if the worst situation on day two would be 6 FA opportunities, even out of those 6 FA, if you're able to attempt 4, you are good, like you're broadly good, because you have in FA slash MA, you need uh, like you need a competency, or you should be competent. So even if you are doing 4 good and 2, like, you know, reasonably okay, so that is fine. So I would like to tell you here is that uh, don't make it a game of the entire day two, because FA is only a part of it. If I talk about day two, your main focus should be assurance. If you're doing well on assurance, and you are doing so in our case, so we are like live cases in front of you. We did assurance good last time around. Out of those 6 assessment opportunities for FA slash MA, we did 4, 3 were FA and 3 were MA. Three FA were fine to us, but in MA only 1 was okay, and the remaining 2, both of us did not do well. So crux is we did 4 well or reasonably well out of 6. So only because of 2 we did not dwell. Yeah. Even flunk the exam, and even at the end of the exam or day two, we were like, okay, we have only in 2 questions we were like just average, or maybe below average, or maybe, you know, NC as well. But we were like, okay, let's just focus on tomorrow, and let's go into day 3. And when you come to day 3, you don't have to go into very much detail. Ideally, the questions on day 3, I would say, out of the 3 questions that you get in each of the exams, those questions should not be very technical, and should be in your mind, like something like non-monetary transactions that you do not have to even refer the
Or intangible assets, like
intangible assets.
straight questions mostly.
Yeah, straight questions. So I would say, whatever you are doing, you just keep doing that. And do not worry much about what you are missing on. As Guneet mentioned, one point which he mentioned very appropriately was that just keep on attempting cases and keep on attempt the entire case, because even at at the end of the entire case you have 6 to 7 assessment opportunities if we talk about day 3, and then you realize at the end of day 3 that okay, these are the worst case that we are discussing, that even then you think that okay, FA was okay, but you did attempt the other 6 well. So
So that's like, so by doing that, you would know that, okay, this is the area that I'm lagging in, and this is where I need to put in more effort. Because like, if you see right now, you still have time, you have like still have 1.5 months to go. So if you put yourself in that situation now, it is a better
situation.
better situation still than putting yourself in that situation on the day of the exam. Because then that, because I think one thing is that also because the exams are continuous, it's very normal and human to actually, that your mood, if your mood is spoiled or you're not feeling okay about one exam, and it may, impact the other day. Because like, it happened with one of my friends that I think she didn't have a good day too, and then she didn't even appear for the day 3 because she was like, oh, I'm definitely failing the attempt. So like, don't let that get to you. So if you feel that, there's anything that's putting you into that situation, you'd rather face it today than face it on the day of the exam, right? Like, it might be a tough spot for you right now, that like, but what worse could happen, right? Like Ravneet mentioned, there could, on day 2 there's only 3 or 4 FAAOs. So say you didn't recall any the solution for any of the 4 AOs, what would happen? The worst right now, right? You would miss them, or maybe you could start with the question and you could not reach to a conclusion. But then after attempting the exam, when you actually refer to the solution, you would be like, okay, now I understand how that happened, how they attempted it. So it would stay in your mind, and once you've done like 4 cases like that, or 2 3 cases like that, in the 4th 5th case, you would start getting that confidence, because then you would get a hang of, okay, this is how I need to go to it, right?
And there are a couple of standards, Abhi. Uh, revenue recognition is one of them, that no matter how many cases you attempt, you would never get a hang of it. You may think, okay, this is something that I've done right, but you may not have. So even RCs on revenue recognition is fine. Do not worry much about those. If you know the answer, you know the answer. But there would be other assessment opportunities which you would say, okay, like non-monetary transaction, okay, that the transaction should be at cost or FMV. So you know the answers already and would be quick. And even for intangible assets, whenever you see intangible asset, you know that I just need to write the conditions and just plus and minus. So focus on those where you can achieve, rather than there are technical topics. Even for tax, we receive queries that should we read about this or should we not, but just focus on what is coming repetitively in the exams and focus on those things, and you should be okay.
Hmm. Like in India, we used to say that, do the smart study in front of instead of the, hard study, that focus on the important topics, and you should at least be like 60 70% covered if you're just at least working on those well.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, actually, that's what I'm trying to do. So when I said that, like I don't attempt the case, I just read the case and see like what chapters I need to do. I do those chapters, and then because like for me, then those chapters are important ones, and then I
Okay.
come back to the case and do it. But like what I'm doing is I'm more focused on studying rather than actually writing the cases, which I think was one of the reasons I didn't clear attempt 1. So yeah, so I think focusing more on the case writing and debriefing would
And debriefing,
help.
yeah. Because
just one more. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, because I think the more important part in writing these practice cases is actually debriefing them.
Yeah.
Because like, even if you go through those technical chapters and you know that, okay, this is the technicals and this is the important topics, only once you attempt them in question, in the paper, only then you would, it would make more sense, and you would understand that, this is how I have to frame my response.
Yeah.
This is how that technical actually connects to the case. So debriefing there is very important, and you can only debrief a case once you've actually attempted it. So, even if you, and this is something we focused on a lot during the webinars also, that, don't go through a lot of technicals, because when you actually start writing cases, it's a whole different perspective of technicals that you're actually writing in the question.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just one last point, maybe on the last days when you are just approaching the exam. So 1 week before the exam, uh, maybe write a couple of cases just to have that flow. But more or less, that is the time that you just revise your technicals, and that also the main. Honestly, we both had. If I talk about 1 day before day two, which is like straight after day one, so we just focused on the main financial accounting standards, which are coming every now and then. Non-monetary transaction, because I have been repeating that in this session as well, is like very repetitive. You should, and that's just a one-liner standard. You do not need to know
Like
much
there's
about that.
actually only just one line in that whole
And
standard.
it came in the exam as well somehow. So so that is how things go. Just focus on the more repetitive ones, because there will always be questions. The tax in our last attempt was relatively difficult, I would say, because in the previous exams it was coming very straightforward, and just that employee employer taxability or chargeability issues. But last time around it was slightly technical. But yeah, those sort of things will come, but we cannot be prepared for that. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
No worries. I think we have so Sameer had one question. Feedback guide
Oh no,
comes.
he was telling. I think Sabrine
Oh,
had that
okay.
question that feedback guides. I think she doesn't have access to. So
Okay, got it.
Sameer mentioned that they also come with the material.
Yeah, but sorry, if I may ask one question, one final question. This came out of this discussion.
No worries.
I'm also supposed to take about 18 days of leaves before the exams from my
Yeah.
work. So I just wanted to know, I have scheduled myself to complete all the cases in capstone 2 until like May 4 or May 5.
Yeah.
But what do you suggest is by when, like till when should we practice those cases? Like when should we stop and go into, because I've been getting this advice that don't burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So
Exam is on 27th, right?
28th, yeah, I guess 28th.
28th.
Yeah.
I would say you can give some good shots until 18th, 19th, 20th. Then you should just start easing out on yourself and just try to revise not only technicals. So Guneet and myself, in our last 10 days, I think we have not discussed this strategy before, or maybe how we went about, but our last 10 days were mainly focused not on writing cases, but on all the cases that we have written. So we used to, so because we were making notes in the cases itself, so we had hand printed cases, which you will get in the exam as well. So we used to note down in each and every case, okay, this is something which we missed out on, or this is something which is very important here, or we feel it is important. So we used to mark those
So in the
items.
word response that you write, when we used to debrief them,
Yeah.
for every AO, we would,
Write
especially Ravneet would
feedback
add
for us.
comment. Yeah, he would add
Yeah,
comments there, which would summarize that, okay, for
what
financial
mistake I
impact.
made, yeah.
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 For the financial impact, there's that one standard line that's used. So when he
Yep.
was missing on the financial impact, he added that you have to write, add that word comment. So
Got
that
it.
way, in those last 10 days, we were actually going through every case.
Without even
Got
But
going
those
into the case.
comments, we
Yeah.
were not going through the case.
Yeah, we were just going into our own comments or feedback. You always have that, back of the mind memory that, okay, this may have been the question and this is our feedback.
Yeah, you remember, like even now that we are marking cases and we, go through the response or even the case, every, the facts come to us that, okay, this was what was happening there.
Yeah.
So it will happen with you. But it's very important for you to revise those takeaways from your debrief,
Yeah.
because that is actually what, you missed out on at that point. So you need that, revision there to
Got it.
not make that mistake again. So that's what we did.
Because in the end, it is about learning from your mistakes, and everybody has their own set of mistakes.
Yeah, but by the when we revised all the cases once, what we did was that there were some topics that were a little off, which are not normally asked, but like they were things that we didn't have any idea about. We actually kept those cases, or we noted down that, this is the case that we have to refer to before the exam day, or maybe like 2 days before. So we had that on a piece of paper written that, okay, before the exam, this is what we're all that we are going to revise again.
An example could be
Makes
for that
sense.
is board or governance structure. How should that be?
These sort of
Because that's a
questions.
very
Yeah,
peculiar
actually.
question and comes every now and then. But
And audit committee questions. Basically, SNG is normally all theory, but then there are those specific points that they want you to, put in your answer.
yeah,
So we remembered that, but we just kept forgetting it or confusing it. So we had that written that, okay, this is something we have to revise before day 3 exam. So like
Got it.
things like that.
Got it. Makes
I
sense.
could do
Thank
that.
you so much.
Yeah, but also like adding to that, like I honestly was still writing a few cases, and even in the last 10 days, because I was not able to write a lot of cases before that.
Yeah.
I was still writing, but then there was a point that I was so drained out that I was like, okay, I'm not writing any more cases. But having that flow of writing cases is also
Is good.
important. Like you
Yeah.
cannot just stop writing cases completely before 10 days, like 10 days before the exam. Like don't write them regularly, or don't write day 2 and day 1, because they are very heavy. And at that point in time, I remember writing a 5-hour case would feel so heavy even thinking of it.
Yeah.
But then at least, like, keep writing a little, like maybe
A couple of day
alternatively or day
threes.
3, just so you are in that process, you have that time management practicing or going on in your head that, okay, this is how I'm doing, this is how I have to write, this is my speed. So just like, to have that, continue to have that hang, so that you don't feel out of practice when you end up in the exam hall after 10 days of not writing a case. All of a
Till
sudden.
that, at least have those last 2 to 3 days
Yeah,
off.
definitely.
At least those.
2, 3, 4 days,
Surely.
no cases at all.
Sounds good actually. Yeah. Sounds good. Gives me confidence. Thank you.
No worries. 1 hour down, but anyone has any further questions? Sabreen,
I actually just have one suggestion that like kind of helped me. I think someone mentioned that they were spending like 5.5 and like or like more than 5.5 hours on D2 case. Like what you can try to do in that scenario is that like see how much time you can give to each AO and just stop writing. Like doesn't matter how much you have written, stop writing, and then go to the feedback guide and see what do you get, RC or C, and then see like what additional thing you could have added, like the minimum additional thing that you could have added that would have gotten you from an RC to C. And that kind of helped me a lot like in D3 cases. So I think like that might help someone.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Sabreen. I think that was for Sabreen.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been doing that already. I'm putting in timers for every single AO, and it's helped me.
Yeah.
Like eventually, for whenever I'm doing case writing, I just put in a timer, and like he said, just stop. That's what I'm doing, and I'm referring the feedback guides as well. It does help for sure. It's just that sometimes you miss the sub AOs. That there's 2 or 3 things asked in the AO, and sometimes you miss one of them, and just because of that, I get an RC.
Yeah.
So I'm
Even the
getting
other
more
day.
of RCs as compared to Cs. So that's why I asked you that how many Cs do I require?
Yeah, you can like, again, same as what we mentioned, somewhere around 50% or maybe slightly less than that. So that should be okay. But that's good even if you are getting those RCs in at this point of time, because we have
like
time here.
even RCs are good at this point, but like if you're saying that you're missing out on a few sub AOs there, then that would indicate that maybe you're writing a lot. It's voluminous. What you're writing is voluminous, because I completely understand this, because I was in the same boat. And the problem with me was that I didn't used to note time. Like I didn't. I didn't only see the clock as to, how many minutes out of 10 have gone. And I would just directly look at the clock after I was done with the AO, and I would see that it was only on already 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that brought me in a very bad position. So the only thing that I changed with time was that I used to keep looking at the clock like after every 2 minutes, so that I already know when I'm only left with say 3 minutes in the case and I'm still working on it. So that way I know that, okay, now is the time I have to start wrapping it up. I have to now work on the conclusion, and then maybe, the financial impact. I basically have to conclude the case, because if I continue writing up until those 10 minutes, then it will take me 2-3 minutes more to wrap it up then and, write the conclusion and everything. So, like for timers, I would say that normally it might sound a little off, but then, don't practice with things that you won't have in the exam.
Yeah.
So with
So
the time,
maybe have a clock on
yeah,
on her point. So in the exam, just to give you a situation like Abhi would know, but for others, so you have a clock on
yeah,
your right and on your left. So you know your time always. So maybe have a clock like right in front of you so that you are in that exam
like you are
situation.
used to it, like that, because what I feel is that it's so much pressure during the exam that even a slight change in the way you'd practice things
Mhm.
can actually, like impact your performance a lot. Like I really feel that. So that's why everybody keeps saying that, when you're practicing cases, actually practice them in an exam-like environment.
Yeah.
That's the whole point behind everybody focusing on that all the time. That, you should be used to that environment, that pressure, that time clock,
Yeah.
everything's starting all of a
Start with-
sudden,
Yeah.
and then ending right at that after that 5 hour. So because at that time you won't get any 2 minutes or 5 minutes or half an hour. So like just start practicing that way. That's why Ravneet also said that like don't make yourself spend another 30-45 minutes on that case, because there's that tendency. We used to have that too, that we know that even if 5 hours have passed, let's just still attempt that technical, so that we go through that technical, we will debrief it, and at least we've attempted that technical. I used to feel that should be helpful. If I'm just going through the technical, I'm at least attempting it, even if it's past the time, right? But I don't think that helps, because then again you just keep getting used to doing that.
Yeah.
You don't put yourself in that pressure situation to actually wrap things up on time.
Yep, thank you for that. It's definitely helpful. And your day 3 suggestions for sure, I think they'll help.
Yeah.
We really hope that now that you practice cases
Yes,
after this call, you feel at least some difference.
yes, I will for sure. And like you said that, I just keep referring to the nausea for the FR cases for day 3, and if I stop doing that, then of course it will save some time.
Yeah, although you may realize that you may not know the technical, but once you do more than a couple of D3 cases, you will realize a pattern that the number or basically the variety of the questions tested is not very diverse. There are a couple of standards which are appearing every now and then. Government grants comes quite a lot. Accounting policies comes quite a lot. So you would know after you write a couple of D3 cases that there are like 10 standards that you need to focus on, and that should be it broadly
Yeah.
speaking.
And I think for day 3, we didn't use nausea a lot. Not a lot, for sure. Like we only went to nausea if we knew exactly what we are looking for and where it is. Because in day 3, you do
can't
not
afford
have
to
the
do that.
time. You do
Yeah.
not have time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also a very out of the context point, but also not taking water breaks is something you should start practicing 10 days before, I guess. 10, 7, 8, 10 days, because more or less many people are also working from home nowadays, so you do not actually realize how you can survive for those 5.5 hours
Without using the restroom, without taking any water breaks or anything. Like it's
it's
an
difficult.
experience. Abhi would know, it's an experience in itself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would at least, take 10 minutes, because that happened to me. And because 10 minutes, why I'm saying, because the restroom can get busy. because it's
Yeah.
possible that there are other people using it, so
Totally.
you might have to wait a couple of minutes. So yeah, so definitely especially in day 2, because day 3, because it's the last day, and like it's 4 hours, it's still manageable. 5
Yeah.
hours, it's like, yeah, and
It's
even an
different.
additional hour makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
It does actually, because like I remember that I had to use the restroom in day 2, and I think that's the now I feel that had I not passed, I would feel that that washroom break was actually the reason I failed my attempt, because of that I missed my 1.5 AO that I was talking about in the
Yeah.
starting of the call. And after the exam, I just kept thinking that, oh, why did I have to use the restroom? I in that 10 minutes I would have attempted at least one full AO, and I would only have been left with that half, so that would still be okay. But then,
Yeah.
so like it's because it takes your 10 minutes. That auditorium is so big, and the washrooms are so far. People are literally running, going to the restroom, coming
Yeah.
back, running.
The
So
restroom is literally another assessment opportunity. that you
Yeah.
need to give, yeah.
so yeah. Hmm.
Any more
And the
questions?
questions are, we're all good.
Looks like all good. Okay then, guys. So more or less, I think you all, one of them, I think only one of them was appearing for September, but for others, best of luck. We will perhaps conduct another session maybe later this month, end of April.
Yeah,
And-
maybe end of April
Yeah,
or starting of May.
Yeah, first week of May, just to check in, and if you have any more questions.
But even like
Before
other
that.
than the session, if there's something that you want to discuss, you can always reach out to us on WhatsApp or anything.
Or
like
even
that's
on the
okay.
group. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the group, although many people do not prefer to do that, but it is generally we suggest so that it is beneficial for everyone, even for those people who are not wanting to ask, but they want the answers. So for them, it's good. Good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much,
Okay,
guys,
guys.
once again for taking out all the time.
No
It really
worries.
means a lot. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Thank you so
guys
much.
for joining
Thank you.
in.
Thank you. Thank you
Have a
so much.
have a
Thank you
nice
so
evening
much.
and all the very best.
Yeah. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
You
Yeah.
too.
Bye bye.